Okay, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, start all your praise on according to Yahweh, Mahasham, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh.
Can now predict mind-reading devices can now predict pre-conscious thought, meaning they can figure out what you are going to do before you do it, should you be concerned. In case you're unfamiliar, a brain-computer interface is just anything that connects your brain to a computer. It can include some things that are non-invasive, like EEG caps, and those are pretty cool. It can also include chips that go directly in your brain. Those can span from a single electrode, or hundreds, or even thousands, and now we're seeing them being placed in multiple areas of the brain with pretty interesting effects, including some emergent behaviors. I was also pretty surprised to see something that looks like a shock title in Nature, which is the highest paper in the land. Basically, if you are in biology and you publish in Nature, your career is set. You're the best of the best. So this did surprise me, but we'll get into it. Brain-computer interfaces can do more than they ever have before in just a few years. People are walking and talking and even being able to experience touch when they've lost the ability to feel anything from the neck down. They can even feel it through somebody else's body. This is because we can give people virtual experiences. If we can control the electrical...
And basically, man, I'm playing the video because that shows you the 2 Thessalonians 2:11. Yeah, 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Who's this mystery of iniquity here speaking about? These fucking devils, man. These fucking Edomites, the fucking Amalekites. They run the world. Give you an idea. They run the world. They run you. Yeah, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So the only he here who letteth is the Lord. The Lord is the one who letteth. And is letting this devil rule until he be taken out the way. And the Lord's also going to take him out of the way. 8. And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy him with the brightness of his coming. And how is the Lord going to do that? It says that with the brightness of his coming. Now we know in Revelation 6, or Revelation 9, that there's going to be 200 million missiles that's going to drop down here in the soil of America to destroy it, because America is Babylon the Great. In Revelation 17, it's the beast. Same thing in Revelation 13. So on and so forth. But this is 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 9. Even so, whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. There's going to be a lot of people who's going to listen to this devil and perish for that, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved to come. They received not the love of the truth, because the Lord ain't revealed this to everybody. Which that's in Isaiah 6. Isaiah 6 and 9, and he said, go into, and Yahweh quotes this in the New Testament. In the New Testament, when he says, unto them is fulfilled the prophet and Isaiah, that seeing they may see and not repent. It's roughly paraphrasing. But Isaiah 6 and 9, and he said, go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their eyes heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. And that's what's going to happen ultimately in the end.
Activity in the brain, it doesn't have to be one way. It can go both, but I do have some qualms with it, like the bionic eyes fiasco. I've got a chip on my shoulder for this one because a company called Second Sight gave people their vision back by implanting a chip in their brain and allowing visual information to go from their eye to their brain when they really wanted the ability to play music. She can now play music.
And so that's also just once again going into the mark of the beast. Revelation 13, and this is verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of this earth. This is Babylon, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. So this scripture proves that the beast, not that beast and dragon is the same thing. It's America. 12. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him. And he causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And this is going into the first beast, which was really started with the Roman Empire, ancient Roman Empire. Because it says the first beast before him, so he was already there. And then in other scriptures, this describes it as a beast whose deadly wound was healed. In Revelation 12, it's mentioned in the dragon. But the point here is to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed, and just like the first beast, Rome, they made their people worship idols and abominations, just like this Esau's doing today. And he exercised all the power of the first beast which were before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of man. That was the Hiroshima. 14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had a deadly wound by a sword and did live. And that was the ancient Roman Empire that fell off, but it still lived by coming back as the American Empire today, which is just a corporation compared to ancient Rome. Ancient Rome was actually better organized, I would say, than this kingdom today. Saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by the sword and did live. So they got taken down by around Dark Age, the Dark Ages, and then they came back as the Romans, as the Europeans and Spaniards, Columbus, and then the papacy that the Brazilians took from Jake coming up. And deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. And today that image is going to be the mark of the beast. Back then it was the Roman emperors who you would have to bow down to, and especially if you were a Christian. Once in a year, the Romans had to go and bow their allegiance to Caesar, basically proclaiming that he is God. And so the Christians wasn't having that, so some of them got persecuted for that eventually. And at first they were accepted because you already had the Jewish, which I don't like to use that word, because what ish means something closely pertaining to. But back then you had the Judean temple, and so the Christians were getting along. Just to give you some history, while I'm speaking all this ranting right now. But the reason why at first they weren't getting persecuted was because they were seen as an ally with Judaism. And they had their benefits for having because the Romans accepted at one point the Judaism as a free religion in the Roman Empire. So they can keep the laws, and they can serve the Lord and call upon His name. But the Christians came with a more radical message. see how it was shot. So they started hearing that name more often around Rome, and to the point where they said, yeah, we got to get rid of these Christians here, which was a disrespectful term to use back in that time, because they were getting labeled Christians so that they can get beheaded at some point later on when Rome started seeing them more as a threat, and the Jews ultimately drew their own people. It was ultimately their own people who brought them up to the Romans and told them as well that. But eventually, either way, it was also Esau, because Esau eventually was that's when the praying and bowing down to Caesar was. That's why that became a thing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that was just something that if I'm not mistaken, especially the Mission, I think of the Mission, one of the last 12 Edomite Caesars, or one of them was Jake. And, so that was back then. So I say all that to say this. Stick to the topic. It's like in verse 15, because it says there that and he gave power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause, that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And now it's going to be and also back then, and also even as well, when you go into the Spaniards, when they came over here to the Americas, and even the Europeans, when they came over here, the Puritans, they called him he came here to America. Eventually, they took some land from North American Indians, and then more of them came in to settle here in America. They took more land, and to the point where eventually God trusted in them and signed deals, stupid deals, and so that more of his lands just ended up being possessed by the Europeans. Those are the Edomites, because it just fits prophecy how Esau is our enemy, going back to Jacob and Esau and their birth. That in itself is a whole breakdown to what we have today with the so-called white man hating the so-called black man, and not just the black man, but the Latino man, the Native American Indian man, because it's not just about a black thing. That's all going back to the curses that we've been put in these positions. So, saying all that, go back to the top. Say this. So go back to the topic in verse 15 right here. And cause, but here's the point. That's what Esau is going to do. So back then, that was also the mark of the beast. Back then, you can say, because if the Native American Indians didn't choose to submit to them, then basically to mark something means it's also symbolizes you being their servant, you being their slave. Like, here's your number, I just marked you. But back then you didn't have a choice either. Some Gadites actually still fought, chose to go to war, go to battle with certain Edomites, but they lost. Each one of them ultimately completely died and got captured by Esau. Defeated by Esau, I should say. The Lord was giving Esau the victory, okay? He was giving him the victory. And that's why Esau ended up to the point where he's still owning us. We are still under his possession. But today he's going to do it through via a MOTB, a digital microchip that will connect you to the system, the American system, the new American system, whatever they're going to call it now. They're not even going to be calling it the American system now, because it's America's really it's not its own country. That doesn't exist anymore. Okay, Russia and America are the same countries because NATO, because they're all hand in hand. This is all going into the beast. This is how Esau believes that he's going to accomplish his will. You can already see the Lord has him as a fool, because he's literally following after what the Lord's gonna. The Lord is like the Lord's telling you already what to do, and you're gonna go do it like his little son, his little boy, his cute little Edomite Amalekite little child did. The baby socks on, the baby's t-shirt on, the baby pacifier on. You're gonna do what the Lord, your Father tells you to do. So the elites, they're doing that. Because right here, literally, it's gonna tell you, right, give you the clue right here in the next verse 16 here. It's literally going to give you the answer here. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that's exactly what Esau is going to do. Mark everybody, so that he can have more control and surveillance on everybody. And most people, they're already tricked anyway. Most of our people, they're already convinced that this is the greatest thing right here, this life right here. So, and ultimately, they just haven't been given the proper spirit to be warned and take heed to these things. They're going to, well, they receive their consolation prize, basically, and they're going to give up easily unto Esau to take this mark of the beast. But it's all to track everything. It's all to do that. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man by himself, so he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And that's what's going to happen. It's basically, they're working it already, and it's already gradually becoming more and more closer to the real thing, the real deal. Because if you're not being disciplined, or at least trying to discipline yourself and believe in the name and take heed and be aware of, still, even though you may fuck up and be on bullshit sometimes, but you're constantly day in, day out, you're praying to the Lord, you're fasting, you're reading scriptures, right? Watching the videos, keeping up to updates brothers may give you, and that's all preparation. That's all constantly preparing you. Repetition is preparing you for what's about to take place, what's about to come. Okay, the Lord coming down with great wrath to judge Esau, to judge his own people, right? To judge Esau, ultimately, once again, take him out of power, take him out of the way, and put up Yahweh Shai, his son, was going to come and destroy this kingdom and rebuild a better earth universe. Right? Put a new capital, all the world, the superpowers, the eternal superpower. Like, you never heard of something like this. Or you had ancient Rome is the closest example of this, and that was an Edomite kingdom. That was his empire, but Jerusalem's going to rule the world, and this is what Yahweh Shai is for. This is what Yahweh Shai is the reason why Yahweh Shai exists. It's to save us, redeem his people, and bring back the paradise, paradisio, they'll call it. I think that's Latin for basically a garden. And Christians were not, and around that time, the Lord writes that in the book of Revelation, one of his letters, to a church. He says something along the lines of, "I'll give you to eat of the tree of paradise." Around that time, the Christians were going through it. Same Christians. Those are us that were back then. We were there back then, seeing that. For the most part, and at least most of us, some of us could be in the spirit world, but all the prophets were back then. Just believe personally, and back here now once again as well. And basically, back in that time, going back to the point of, the false. Okay, okay, this is what I'm saying. They were going through it, and when they got the letter, that John was given to write, that he heard the Lord speaking, and the visions he wrote down and sent it to the churches. Around that time, they were going through a mass persecution, and the same persecution is slowly coming back as well, because even back then, if you were to worship Yahweh Shai and want to go to the marketplaces, by that time, around 90 AD, it's written the persecution really started at first. It might have not been that serious, or that serious to be considered a threat to the Roman society, but eventually, as more Christians spread and as the message kept growing, a message of, oh, there's only one Savior, he's going to come to destroy this kingdom, the bigger, better one. That basically, you gotta go through the Son, Yahweh Shai, not the Father. I mean, yeah. I mean, you still go through, well, yeah, you gotta go through Yahweh Shai, not the Father. And, the Jews had an issue with that and brought it up to the governments and stuff, and separated them from the temple. That's why it says you shall be cast out of the temple houses. And so with that, I mean, that's really the point. Going into the mark of the beast and stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be a great test. Scriptures call it the hour of temptation. So never mind. Let me get this first before I close. Revelation 2 and 10. If you're none of those things, thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast. The devil means deceiver, and this devil is obviously going into the American system as a whole. It's full of demonic witchcraft and stuff like that. But ultimately, the literal person behind this word devil here is ultimately going into the Edomites. Because the Edomites are the ones in rulership right now. And when Edomites in rulership, 9 times out of 10, we're at odds with him. Now, there's been certain accounts where the Edomites go to war and join battle with their army to join the Israelite army for battle up against Moab. In 2 Kings, the 2nd chapter, it mentions how Edom was with this one king. It wasn't Ahab, but it was his son. I think his son was Ahaz, and son of Ahab, and but for the most part, you have more accounts. Even then, after he was just one of the kings. After him, you got more accounts of certain southern kingdom, Judite king of the tribe of Judah ruling and going to battle against Esau. Yeah, the book is a book about battling the nations, fighting the nations, going against one nation, the tribe of the nation of Israel going against all the nations. Psalm 83. What do you think Psalm 83 is for? Why would Psalm 83 still be in the Bible today? If it's if the Lord thought it would be hate speech or false misinformation, right? Like Esau claims today. But here's Psalm 83. About Psalm 83 being the scriptures, which literally gives you a list of the nations that the King David is telling the Lord to destroy, or I mean Asaph here is telling the Lord to destroy. This was a psalm in Israel that they would sing. I'm sure they had instruments and would play these psalms here. This is Psalm 83. And verse and this is in the NIV, but the KJV is better. And you can also, you might get it, but if you have time to, you never read that, read that. You should read that in the King James Version. Because ultimately the King James Version is the most accurate, and that's ultimately why we deal with it. Psalm 83, and because these other translations, the NIV, they came more later on, and so the KJV is still the very most accurate book. The Geneva Bible is too, but ultimately the King James Bible is the only Bible that always kept the Apocrypha in it. Today Esau lies and says that no, that's not true. But that's Esau who removed the Apocrypha from the Bible, because Esau just took what Cambridge was already a thing that's been there since the time of King James. But what Esau does is he takes it, he removes the Jake bloodline from it, and then calls it his own. Basically, takes identities. This is Psalm 83, though, going back to the point. 6, the tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarites. Byblos, Ammon, and Amalek, Philistine, with the people of Tyre. Even Assyria has joined them to reinforce Lot's descendants. Do to them as to the Median, as you did to Sisera and Javan at the brook of Kishon. So this is it says in the verse, Byblos, Ammon, and Amalek. Amalek is the false Jews today. We ultimately believe that your faith, so you can have it, whatever you have to say against that, that's on you. Philistine with the people of Tyre. So verse 7 here anyway. When you got, I looked up Psalm 83 verse 7 commentary, and in verse 7 is what they say about the verse I just read there, naming these other feudal nations. One of the first ones being Amalek. When you go to verse 6, I'll jump up into verse 4 to give you more context. Come, they say, let us destroy them as a nation, so that Israel's name is remembered no more. So this was a prophecy, actually. I know it's a song, which means a song, but the prophecies are songs. How should I compare the truth and the prophecies unto a song, like children singing in the marketplaces? And in Psalm 149, it mentions, sing unto the Lord a new song. Ultimately, that new song is when the kingdom is fully here. But before that, proclaiming it comes first. So we're first proclaiming this kingdom, the message here, and that it's going to happen. But do you have faith in it? And that it is ultimately going to come? And if you have faith in it, ultimately you're going to do what you have to do to make it found acceptable to gain that kingdom. Because if you're without faith, your works are dead. I mean, without works, your faith is dead. If you have faith, you're gonna have works. If you don't have works, then ultimately you never believe in this, what you're doing. See how pointless that would be. So you ultimately gotta have faith in it. That's why and how 2/3 of our own people don't have faith in this. Them specifically, especially them and other dudes that came and fell off. Speaking about them specifically, I mean, you never believed. You never believed. You never your faith, in your works. You stopped doing your works. So, but ultimately, when you going back to the commentary, he urges Asaph here. He urges God to act against Israel's enemies who plan to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. Going back to Psalm 83, that's verse 4. So that Israel's name is remembered no more. That's why we ain't called Israelites. That's why ultimately it was the Lord's will. Yeah, ultimately it was the Lord's will for that to happen, because the Lord said we would fall from our heritage. And in Jeremiah 17:4, and even thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. And that forever there just means a long time. And it's not talking about hell. Which ultimately, what's that thing called? Ultimately, oh yeah, you false Christians, you believe the lake of fire is hell. But the lake of fire is a prophecy that hasn't even been fulfilled yet. When you go into it, when you actually go into the scriptures and correctly summarize them and meditate them to understand, unto the spirit's understanding of it, then yeah, but the lake of fire is going into America being destroyed, because when you go into the word, where the worm dieth not, that's a metaphor for the punishment, the grave, basically. And it was a metaphor. Because how can a fire consume a worm, basically? So I'm just get this real quick and then go back to the main point. Psalm 83. We are his enemy. We are the nations are our enemies. And basically, we pissed the Lord off, and so we fell from our heritage. We discontinued from our heritage. When you go to verse 4, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. And there is going to be Jakes that are going to join the lake of fire. That's going to be the destruction of America here. Mm-hmm. This is Numbers 83 and verse. Never mind. This is what I'm gonna do. Just to talk about the hell thing for a minute. Revelation 19 and 20. For true and righteous are his judgments. Just for those that may not know much about this, it may even be new coming in. So we gotta speak on these every now and then. Revelation 9, these breakdowns and stuff like that. Revelation 19 and 2. For true and righteous are his judgments, for he hath judged the great whore, which they cover up the earth with her fornication, and have avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. 3. And again they said, Hallelujah, and her smoke rose up forever and ever. Mark 9:44. Matthew 8 and 12, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Mark 9 and 44, and word 43, I'll start 43, and if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having two hands to go into hell. So just like it says here, you gotta cut your hand off. It's not literal. Just like the hell here isn't what Esau said it is. Back in this time, they understood what this meant. Into the fire, that because they understood reincarnation, so there's no such thing as hell. So having into the fire that never shall be quenched, where they're warmed, if not, and the fire is not quenched. So those are a metaphor for going into hell there for a second there.